interest for tonight? And I don't either. Okay, we have two findings of facts, the Pine River Roofing and Stone Dance Studio. If nobody has an issue with those, we can entertain a motion to approve those.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the planning commission approve the findings of fact and conclusions to the conditional use permits for Stunning Dance Studio LLC and Pine River Roofing and Construction.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Hack. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Lally. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Perfect. Okay, we're going to move right on to our agenda item number 4, which is Habo Munama Delphine Daycare. And this is a continued agenda item from our September 7th meeting. And this will be presented by Zachary Smallwood.
Yeah. So I kept all the slides in from when we talked about it last time. So I'll just review those pretty quickly just to kind of give everybody in the audience a refresher. So this is a request from Mr. Habo Munama for a major home occupation at 5953 South Jamaica Circle. It's located here, just south of 5900 South. I don't know. South of 5900 South and just east of 700 West. It's in an R18 zone, which allows home occupations as an accessory use in the zoning district. This is the site plan that he provided. His house is located here. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac. A couple photos of the property. But Mustafa was nice and took pictures for me. So, as I kind of mentioned in the packet, I'll just kind of review that quickly. So, the commission asked for additional clarification on what type of application this was and what kind of conditions can be applied. And I consulted with the attorney's office on September 11th, 2023. And it was determined that this is considered a land use application, meaning that if they meet the standards in the ordinance, that then the planning commission is obligated to approve the application. So specifically, there are, for major home occupations, there are a total of 4 and 3 specific conditions that need to be addressed. The first one is limits on hours of operation. Second is limits on numbers of clients per day/hour, and provision of adequate off-street parking. In the staff report at the previous meeting, we went over, in the staff report and in the previous meeting, we've gone over a number of those, being that the applicant does have adequate off-street parking located in their driveway area, and hours of operation. Staff has recommended that they've proposed a 24-hour operation, and we've proposed that to accommodate that they just have no pickup drop-offs between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And then to help limit the numbers of clients per day per hour, we've asked that they stagger pickup and drop-offs for if they're going to have a large number of pickup and drop-offs, that they be staggered about 10 minutes apart. So with that, staff has provided the following 3 findings, and we are recommending approval of the application subject to the 8 conditions on the screen and in your staff report. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? We didn't have a lot of conversation about this last meeting. Okay. Well, does anybody want to have any additional conversation about this? If not, we could entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve a major home occupation business for Happy Mama Delphine Daycare business at the property address 5953 South Jamaica Circle, subject to the 8 conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Patterson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second from Commissioner May. Perfect. Let's do a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nay,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Makavich, and Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay. Congratulations on your approval. And we hope your business as well. Okay, let's move on to our agenda item number 5, which is legacy materials. This is also a continued item from our September 7th, 2023 meeting, and we're going to have Susan Nixon present.
Thank you. So yes, this item was continued from the September 7th Planning Commission meeting for a couple of reasons. There was discussions on state environmental regulations, if there were any. And also we had been inundated with 204 emails that we had not had the opportunity to review. So since that time, we did review them. Commissioners have all received copies of those. Basically, to summarize those, they were there was 204 altogether, and they were all concerns about the dust, health, and standards of quality. So, quick review of the property. It's on Commerce Drive, 4300 South Commerce Drive. It's located between I-15 and Commerce Drive, which is also 300 West. It's in our MG manufacturing zone, which is the correct zone for this type of a use. And here's the site plan of the property. They are proposing to have a casting area and then the stone inventory area also about on the north half of the property, the batching plant center, and then they've also proposed to have a temporary office at the south end, which is shown on the site plan. Temporary mobile offices are allowed up to 6 months, and there is a possibility of that being extended if the applicant requests an extension and if there are plans submitted for a permanent structure prior to that expiration. The applicant is shown on the site, and they are proposing to have an 8-foot chain link privacy fence along, and then a 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire along the west side. Both of those do meet our code as far as fencing. The fence along the Commerce Drive will need to be set back at least 10 feet from the property line or the property frontage. At the last meeting, we also, since the meeting last time, I asked the applicant business process as far as how and exactly they process and what they do. And the planning commissioners have all received a copy of Mr. Ball's email outlining that. And that was also included in the packet. And here's a site plan or floor plan of the mobile office, which is about 700 square feet. And then just some photos of the property currently. These are all repetitive from last meeting, so no new information really. I
Can we
did
review
speak.
them again, please? I'm sorry. I didn't.
Oh, you want me to look at it?
Yeah, just sorry.
Oh,
Just
excuse
sorry.
me. Mr. Lee was not here. Right. Let's go back. Okay, so these are the views from 300 West Commerce Drive. Again, Commerce Drive looking to the west. And there's, they have, with the land disturbance permit, which they have been issued, they can clean the property and basically grub and scrub so they can clean it up and that. So this
It's on the east side.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, they've had some trucks on there at that time and the machine. So
That's the casting area. They're saying that on the picture on the left.
left.
Those look like the ones. Okay, thank you.
Casting areas.
So those trees are along the north property. So
Yes.
you may say, okay.
So the site plan it shows it better. Yeah, the casting area. Yeah.
But it's an open casting. Okay.
Let's see. So since the meeting on September 7th, I did contact the State Department of Air Quality, Ms. Christine Bodell, and have had correspondence with her since that time. She indicated that the applicants had indicated to her that they would have a plan to her last Friday. And as of today, they have not submitted a plan to them, according to Ms. Bodell. I also checked with Salt Lake County Health Department. Health Department does not regulate these types of businesses. They do respond if there are complaints or concerns about operations there, but they do not regulate or require any kind of a permit. And then, sorry, let me back up. Back to the state, Ms. Bodell did indicate to me that she, at this point, does not know if they will be required to have a permit, but whether or not a permit is required, they will have to go through a review. The state will have to basically sign off on that review prior to any operations on the property. So as far as their application, they meet, we've got a lot of conditions there. We'll get to in just a second here, but let's see if I missed anything on here. The applicant indicated that they would have about 10 people working on the site, and they'll just have to update their site plan to show parking that meets the requirements for that. And then they'll have to install some additional landscaping along the frontage. So the findings for this application are listed. It's shown there are 3 findings. Then the recommended conditions of approval, 15, actually close to 20, as listed. And they've been modified somewhat from the last meeting. But the planning commission's received a copy, and the applicants received a copy of that also. So we are recommending the planning commission approve this conditional use based on the conditions outlined. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Susan? Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about?
I have a couple of questions for the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, let's, maybe we'll have the applicant come up, we can ask him whatever questions we want, and then we can continue our conversation. We have the applicant come to the podium. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Ryan Balls, address 8932 South State Street, Sandy, Utah, 84070.
Thank you for being here again. I guess, before we ask you questions, is there anything you would like to share with us? And then I think we have a couple of commissioners with questions.
Well, let's go ahead with questions.
Okay,
So I understand that you have a dump truck that comes and delivers your aggregate material, your sand and your gravel or whatever that you put in. Your cement gets delivered, and it's delivered in a sealed container. It's shipped by a vacuum tube to the storage silo, whatever you call it. When you actually mix, talk to me about the mixing process. You bring all the materials together.
Okay, the batch plant has sealed tubes with augers inside them for the cement. It seems to be the only thing anybody cares about. I can talk to you about the sand and the gravel as well. They're just in hoppers, and they weigh and they drop onto a conveyor, and they're conveyed into the truck. The cement powder actually has a tube with an auger inside of it. It augers the cement powder up to the top where it runs into a rubber boot, goes down into the hopper of the truck. Does that along with the water. So
And the auger, is it covered?
it's encased. Yes, it's sealed.
And the top of the hoppers are covered as well?
The top of the cement silo, yes.
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 Okay. But those are actually my questions. So
do you have questions?
I had 2, that was one.
Okay.
The other one, I don't know if it's going to be relevant, but do you have any information to share about the plan that the State Department of Air Quality requested?
Not aware that they asked for something. That was news to us. Is it Christine If I remember correctly,
Yes.
she has not been in contact with us. We'd be happy to provide that. We understand that we will have to go through their process to determine whether or not we meet the minimum requirements of tonnage to require an air quality.
Is there other questions?
I have a question. There's still a lot of excess material on site. Do you have any plan to mitigate that?
Yes, we'd
Stay
like to-
there,
We'd like
batch
to-
plant stays on the north side, on the south side, and the side property.
Our goal is to get rid of all that excess material, that dirt that's on the, there you go. Nope. Yep. That will go away, slowly but surely, not add to it.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. I think that you had stated that there would be no cutting of concrete on site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't think we have a condition that says that. Do we? I think I read two, there's not one. I think I'd be in favor of adding that condition because that is one of the complaints a lot of people mentioned this in their comments was, cement cutting causes a lot of particulate to go into the air. So I think it'd be okay if we added that as a condition to this permit.
I would be okay with that if you add at the caveat that there be no dry cutting of concrete on site. But
Is there ever dry cutting of concrete?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time. It happens on almost every building site.
So you're saying you are going to cut concrete?
I'm not saying we are. I'm not saying that we are, but I would hate to be limited to not be able to use a wet cutting saw, which just creates a slurry. It doesn't create any dust.
Okay.
And that's no different than when somebody comes out and cuts a curb or something in the neighborhood, they use water, it creates a slurry. There's no dust in the air.
So you'd be okay if we added a condition that said there's no dry cutting of concrete on site?
Be fine with that.
Okay. I also would be in favor of maybe talking about a condition where the cement powder could not be stored outside or in the open. Would you be okay with a condition similar to that?
Yeah, we don't want that either. It'd be ruined if it got rained on or the wind blew it away.
The rain fell on it.
Yes, any weather conditions to the cement powder would be harmful to the product, and it's very expensive. So, yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a non-issue for us.
Are there any other questions? The applicant? I think one thing we just want to make clear is that assuming we do end up approving this, all these conditions these 15, and if we add more, will all have to be, we'd have to be in compliance with all of these before you can start doing business on the property, because this is a conditional use, and all these have to be met before you can do business, or you can start doing business on site. Okay. If nobody else has any questions for the applicant, you can go ahead and take a seat. Thank you.
Do we have any discussion about the two suggestions for conditions made by the chair? I guess,
They hate them, but
my question mainly be how, could you state again, all storage of cement powder must be sealed,
I think it's a non-issue, honestly. I
I think that it's
think they're protecting their materials. They don't want waste. And obviously, if it gets wet inside of any of their apparatus, they're going to have to then go to that for clean it all out. And that's just beyond what they want to do.
so,
I would support the commission concerning no dry cutting. I think that's a great distinction.
so no dry cuts of cement site.
Concrete.
Concrete, is that what I wrote?
I think I'm fine too without this cement condition because you're right. You cannot store the outside or it's really or cement outside.
And I want to acknowledge all of the comments that we received from people that volunteer at the Humane Society. I think that a lot of their fears are not part of what's really actually going to be happening on this site. I work in healthcare, I work in cardiology, I work with patients that have COPD and emphysema, and so I understand, what that does to a person and how it can be exacerbated by bad weather or materials in the air. And I really do believe that by and large this process is contained, other than when they're actually pouring in the molds. And then the other comment I'll make is this is a manufacturing zone. And this is the type of operation that is to be performed in a manufacturing zone. I appreciate that the Humane Society was good stewards of the funds that they have, and they sought land in a place that was affordable and allowed them to have expanded operations. Unfortunately, it is in a manufacturing zone, and it kind of does bring these problems or these types of businesses along with it. So I want to acknowledge you and say I understand your concerns. I really do think they will be by and large mitigated. I'll also point out that just on the other side of 3900 South, about your same west, there is a massive concrete plant there. And they have a lot of their materials uncovered. There's dust clouds that come up off of those. And so that's contributing. We do have a smaller batch plant on Commerce and just before 4800 South that mixes small batches of concrete in their property. They've been there for years now. The neighbors initially had concerns, but I think their concerns have been allayed. So I just want to acknowledge that we did take the time to read your comments, and they were very thorough, and they were a lot of comments to read, but I appreciate where you're coming from with it.
Thank you, Commissioner A. I think we all could probably say the same thing that Commissioner A just mentioned, that we all care about the air quality in the city of Murray. We're all residents here. I'm myself am a pet owner. I am a former pet store owner. I care about pets, and so I understand the concerns. I read all the comments, just probably like all the other commissioners did. A lot of the comments, unfortunately, I think there was some information that was put out that was not correct. This is not a cement plant, and so all the research that everybody did on cement plants was not correct. And so, there is cement there, but we took all these comments seriously, and we read through them. And this is a conditional use in the zone, and so we have to look at it and put conditions on it, which is what we've done here. So it has come to my attention, though, that we did have some changes to the conditions. So can I have the applicant come back up just real quick? And please, once again, just state your name and address.
Ryan Balls, 8932 South State Street, Sandy, Utah.
Thank you. So we did make a few changes from last meeting, and I think most of those were in condition 1C. Is that correct, Susan?
Yeah, Section 1C, just now it says that a copy of the permit or reviews from DAQ to be provided to condition number 10 now says the applicant shall install an 8-foot chain link fence with slats or solid fence along the north property line. The previous condition was for a solid wall. So now it's been changed, and then we moved one that said the site plan be updated for the drive approach, which they've already done. So that was basically it.
Thank you. So will you be able to comply with these new changed conditions? And additionally, if we added the dry kennel condition, will you be able to comply with those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You would have a seat, thanks. Okay, we could have we can have more conversation if we need to.
Otherwise, we could entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the planning commission approve a conditional use permit for legacy material business at the property address 4300 South Commerce Drive, subject to the conditions 1 through 15, with the addition of condition number 16 that says dry cutting concrete will not be allowed on site.
Commissioner May, we have a motion from Commissioner May, second.
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner Patterson. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Ming?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. McCambridge? Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Chairperson?
Yes. Okay, congratulations on the approval. And just a reminder that we need to get all those conditions met before we can start doing business on property. And thanks everyone for being here. Okay. We're going to move to our agenda item number 6, which is public meeting training, Open and Public Meetings Act training. This is going to be presented by
Richardson.
Art Richardson. Thank you.
So, just a little bit more of an introduction since first opportunity to be here at the Planning Commission. Again, Mark Richardson with the City Attorney's Office. I've worked here for about 16 and a half years from Murray City. A good portion of that was on the prosecution side. Last few years I've moved over to the civil side. So I look forward to this is the first of hopefully many opportunities to be here with you at the Planning Commission. So, and I feel required to say, as any Murray person should, it's been 6 generations of family who lived in Murray and happy to be here. So I get the opportunity to talk to you tonight about the Open and Public Meetings Act. And if that doesn't excite you, nothing will. As you, I think, are aware, boards and commissions are required to receive training on the Open and Public Meetings Act every year. So I'm sure many of you have heard this before. Maybe give the presentation on the Open and Public Meetings Act, but we'll go through this and answer any questions you might have. The presiding officer of the public body, as you know, shall ensure that you're trained each year on the Open and Public Meetings Act. And as you're aware, the public policy is defined by state law. The legislature finds and declares that the state, its agencies, and political subdivisions exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. And the intent is that they take their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. It's the people's government and should be done openly not behind closed doors. Openly refers to the fact that every portion of the meeting should be open for public observation. Again, as you see, many entities have citizen comment periods, and members of the audience may not participate unless they're invited to do so, but they do have the opportunity to observe. For the Open and Public Meetings Act to apply, there has to be a meeting. Meeting means the convening of the public body with the quorum present, whether in person or electronically, for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter over which the public body has jurisdiction. So essentially, any official action taken. As you know, a chance gathering or a social meeting, if the 6 of you happen to run into each other at Applebee's or something, doesn't automatically make it a meeting if you're not going to discuss the business. Although the code does clarify you can't use social gatherings to try to get around the Open and Public Meetings Act. So if you do run into each other talking business, that could turn it into a meeting real quick.
I'm not at Applebee's.
Okay, well, good.
They're probably okay.
There does need to be a quorum. Quorum means a simple majority of the membership of the public body unless otherwise defined by applicable law. As you know, 4 members of the Planning Commission constitute a quorum. To notify the public, an annual notice is published every year with the regularly scheduled meetings. That's published each year. And for each meeting, 24 hours, at least 24 hours notice is provided. That notice includes a copy of the agenda, the date, time, and location of the meeting. It's posted in the principal location of the meeting as well as the Utah Public website. The 24-hour requirement may be disregarded in emergency situations if there was a need to meet and there wasn't enough time for the 24-hour notice. However, the public body is required to give the most and best notice practical, given the situation. The agenda that's published must give reasonable specificity to notify the public of the topics that are going to be discussed. Basically, if someone sees the agenda, do they know what's going on? Each topic is listed under an agenda item, and as you know, topic raised by the public may not be discussed during an open meeting, may be discussed during an open meeting, even if not on the agenda. It just can't, no formal action can be taken on that. So. Meetings can be closed under certain circumstances, which we'll get to in the next slide, but to close a meeting, a quorum must be present, and 2/3 of the members of the public body have to vote to approve a closed meeting. If a meeting is closed, the reason for the meeting being closed, the location of the closed meeting, and the vote by name of each member, either for or against closing the meeting, must be publicly announced and entered into the minutes. The reasons are set forward in the act. I would imagine these don't apply too terribly often to this group, but discussions of the character, professional competence, or physical and mental health of an individual, strategy sessions to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, sessions regarding the purchase or exchange of real estate, discussions about security personnel or systems, and things dealing with allegations of criminal misconduct. Obviously, the kinds of things you would expect to be behind a closed meeting. If the meeting is closed, there shall be a recording of the closed meeting, and you may include detailed written minutes. There are exceptions to that. If you are discussing the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, or discussing the security personnel devices and systems, that does not need to be recorded. However, there does need to be a sworn affidavit signed regarding the purpose of the closed meeting in those situations. So, closed meeting minutes or the recording are protected records under GRAMA, but they are subject to disclosure by court order. Electronic meetings, we've become familiar with that thanks to COVID. They make a distinction between electronic meetings with anchor location, without. An anchor location is a place where people can actually be. So under that first point, electronic meetings with an anchor location are allowed and authorized if done pursuant to an adopted resolution, rule, or ordinance, and it's properly noticed. That would be a situation where one of you might not be here or wanted to zoom in, and there's still an opportunity for the public or for the rest of you to be here. That second point, electronic meeting without an anchor location, is what we saw thanks to COVID. If a meeting needs to be held entirely remotely, it's authorized if the chair of the public body makes a determination that conducting a meeting in person presents a risk, a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present. Included in the public notice under that situation is a statement describing the chair's determination that it's a substantial risk, as well as a summary of what it is that would make it a substantial risk, and information on how the public can attend remotely. Another change we saw with COVID is that determination expires after 30 days, so you can only have that in place for 30 days. You don't have to do another one, but hopefully we don't have to deal with that again. So, just a few last things on enforcement. Disruption of meetings. Individuals can be removed from a public meeting if they willfully disrupt the meeting to the extent that the orderly conduct is seriously compromised. So that's an option. Final actions are avoidable if something is done that violates the Open and Public Meeting Act. So, for example, if a meeting was closed but should have been open, or if the notice provisions weren't followed correctly, things like that. Any action taken in those meetings could be voided by a court. Those are enforced. The act is enforced by the AG's office or the district attorney. A person also denied rights under the Open and Public Meeting Act can commence an action to compel compliance with it. So just be aware of that. Any violation of the Open and Public Meeting Act could be charged as a Class B misdemeanor. I think we just kind of end this with a couple of thoughts as some stuff from some previous cases. These types of laws, these transparency laws have been around for a long time. They're referred to as sunshine laws, meaning that business of the public body should be conducted in the sunshine, open to the public. And to finish off, we've got a quote from the Sixth Circuit Court, democracy's died behind closed doors. So that's the basics on the Open Public Meeting Act. Any questions or anything? Okay.
I have a question,
Yeah.
actually. It may not be related exactly what you presented here, so you can answer it not. But one of the slides, the first one I think is very related. One of the slides said that we could discuss other things raised by the public as long as we don't make an action upon that item or something like that.
Yes.
So if someone from the public brings it up, we could discuss it potentially, but we could not bring up our own topic. Is that correct?
Right, things have to be on the agenda. If something were to come up in a discussion, like I said, and I believe the act says the chair has the discretion whether or not to allow discussion about it, but no formal action.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, I just had this thought while you were talking, because you said that a quorum is 4 members. So when we take action on an agenda item, it's a majority of those members that need to pass the item. So if there are only 4 of us, we need 3 out of the 4 to pass that.
Correct.
If there's a tie, then I just want to understand the procedure here. It doesn't pass, we would have to do another motion and try again? Is that the procedure there?
Yeah, I don't know if there's in your provisions, if there's a tie break provision, but if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass and would put on, I suppose, the next agenda.
Okay, so if it's a tie,
If it's a tie, then you try to deliberate more and then try to come to another motion.
because we could do another motion by amending we couldn't do the same vote, but we could, or could you do the same
You can make
vote?
the same motion.
Discuss it further and then take another vote.
So, but, okay.
So if you guys go through that motion over and over and over, you still end up at a tie, and I'll let Mr. Richardson verify it. But I think that technically, at least in a land use application, it goes to I think it is approved. Because it lays, you have to give the benefit to the property owner when it comes to land use decisions. But I will let Mr. Richardson verify that, and I'll come back. But I do believe that is the case, and so I don't think
Mr. Richardson, just so you know, we expect 1,000 word. Ask a question in the city attorney.
What you ask the attorney to write.
Still, could make a motion to continue
you can do that.
this.
And if someone,
But you have to state reasons why.
okay, but as soon as the motion passes, whether someone makes a motion to approve it or to not approve it, as soon as the motion passes, that agenda item is finished and we move to the next item. Yeah, okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Ninth Circuit, I believe.
Yeah, ask another now questions.
Search since 10.
Google search says 10. Okay. Questions? If not, we appreciate you coming tonight and teaching us. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, the Open Public Meeting Act is riveting, so.
That's the required training annually. This is one of the required.
Okay, well, do we have anything else?
I thought Elvin was going to come up and give us the city's master economic development plan.
That's true. Can't do it.
You can talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I could mention, we can't talk about it, but just to mention that the hearing officer did hear the rate conditional use and subdivision. This week, we don't have the determination yet. There's no time limit. It's when he compiles and reviews it thoroughly and feels like he's got an answer. That's
You say he does not have a time limit?
no. No, it's a reasonable time. So if it's 6 months out, that's okay. But 2-3 weeks.
Is it Jim?
Extra things.
Anything else from staff?
So, yes, on your next meeting, there's going to be 2 agendas. Because you will be having a presentation from GSBS on the Murray North Station Area Plan, kind of a workshop. It's going to be a workshop. It's going to be you and Mill Creek's Planning Commission together. So you'll have that, and then you'll have a 1-item agenda. So we're going to have 2 agendas. One's going to be kind of a workshop, and it's going to start at 6:30, go from 6:30 to 7:30, and then you'll have your regular meeting from 7:30.
And that's here.
Yep, that'll be here.
And we're running the whole meeting? Okay.
Well, you both kind of do. You both will open the meeting, your own meetings. It's weird, but it's fine. We did it with city council, we can do it with them.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll still have the 6 o'clock pre.
Is there a reason why we're doing one agenda item first?
Because we started planning this like a month ago, so I didn't know how many applications were going to be coming forward for the October 5th. So
So my question is, who's running the workshop?
GSBS will be running it.
Does he have time limit?
Yeah, they know they have an hour. Yep.
We have to do that just for purposes of overseeing. City council
I know
does.
workshops.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, good, a motion to adjourn? No, we could just sit here, it's fine.
Make a motion to adjourn at, make a motion to adjourn at 7:16 PM.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned. You're lucky, because I was going to invite Phil up and say, okay, Phil, we're done adjourned, so yeah, why don't you teach us something too?